Spiritual Weapon. I talked a bit about the spell in my video on 1D&D playtest, where they changed the spell. I said it was always a bad spell, and you guys seemed a bit confused, so it's time for a full video. Welcome to Pack Tactics, where Spiritual Weapon is bad. Spiritual Weapon, you create a floating spectral weapon within range that lasts for the duration or until you cast the spell again. When you cast a spell, you can make a melee spell attack against a creature within 5 feet of the weapon. On a hit, the target takes force damage equal to 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. As a bonus action on your turn, you can move the weapon up to 20 feet and repeat the attack against a creature within 5 feet of it. The weapon can take whatever form you choose. Upcast. When you cast a spell using a spell slot of 3rd level or higher, the damage increased by 1d8 for every 2 slot levels above 2nd. It lasts for a minute and requires a bonus action to be cast. It is often seen as a mandatory spell for clerics. But Kobold, it fills up your entire action economy. It doesn't require concentration. There's no reason not to cast a spell. Exactly. I read these comments all the time. I completely understand the sentiment. But I don't agree. A lot of builds have good action economy, which means they often get to use their action and bonus action. But, and this is a big but here, this is not necessarily the reason they are strong. However, power is power. Doing something with your bonus action isn't inherently a good thing. Your overall output still needs to be worth the resource investment. To understand what I mean, let me give you an exaggerated example. Let's say you have a class feature that allows you to use a 9th level spell slot to heal 1 HP. It's not a spell, so you can use it on the same turn as casting Spirit Guardians. Obviously, this feature is crap. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not think Spiritual Weapon is this bad. It's just an exaggerated example to try and bring my point across. Action economy isn't inherently powerful. So how do you tell if it's worth the resource investment then? Good question. Let me snag a skit we did in my other video, because I like it. Gator, why do we kill enemies? So we don't die. Correct. And why do we use our resources to kill enemies? To reduce the chance we die. If they don't get to do stuff because they are dead, we survive. Very, very true. If I cast Fireball, I am trying to reduce damage on myself by killing the enemies. I am now going to relate things. Listen very closely, young Padawan Gator. But Kobold, it's Lord Gator. Remember, I got lordship. Yeah, we gotta talk about that lordship later, alligator. Anyways, if I cast Spiritual Weapon and damage an opponent, I, in essence, reduce the damage I take. Now, we can look at how much Spiritual Weapon by itself can reduce the damage the party takes. For this, I'll use the math provided to me by Moonsilver. This math considers one specific type of encounter, namely one deadly encounter against a single monster. And let me be clear, this type of encounter is the best case scenario for Spiritual Weapon, as the stronger the encounter, the more damage Spiritual Weapon can prevent. The math could consider an encounter with a lot more but much weaker enemies, but in that scenario, other spells like Spirit Guardians are just so overwhelmingly better. Spiritual Weapon is not significantly adding anything to what you are doing. The math could also consider an encounter in between these two, but in such a scenario, Command is easily beating Spiritual Weapon, so it's also not the best case scenario. As for the stats for this, Moonsilver has referenced an article from Blog of Holding. I'll link that below. The author analyzed existing monsters and created a sort of cheat sheet to make new ones. Take it as a sort of average monster per CR. The CR, of course, corresponds with a deadly encounter at a certain level. As for who's casting the spell, it's Gator. He has +3 wisdom modifier at level 1, +4 at level 4, and +5 at level 8. We gotta make sure we hit those swings. This is best case scenario. Normally I would delay these ASI increases in favor of getting some feats that protect concentration, which is a lot stronger, but I won't get into that right now. Additionally, the math assumes that the creature that is being attacked is a no magic items, non-defense fighting style, Adventures League, sword and board ally. The ally starts off with 18 AC and finishes off with 20 AC by getting plate armor at level 11. This is quite favorable to spiritual weapon, as you would deny a lot less damage if your allies had 19 AC, and with the shield spell get 24 AC when necessary, which is not a hard build to accomplish. So let's talk about the actual math. First, we calculate how much spiritual weapon does on average. This is calculated by multiplying hit chance based on the enemy AC with the average damage of a second level spiritual weapon on a hit. We also add the amount of damage it does on a crit multiplied by the chance to crit. We assume a combat lasts around 4 rounds without spiritual weapons contribution, which is about average. Additionally, we cast spiritual weapon in round 2, as we use round 1 to cast more effective spells like Bless or Spirit Guardians. And due to bonus action spellcasting rules, we cannot cast both in one round. Majority of you already know that rule. If you didn't, well, there's the rule. We could assume more rounds so that spiritual weapon would deal more damage in total. However, if that longer combat is as difficult as the shorter one, the enemy in the longer encounter would have less impact on a round per round basis, so killing them faster is not as important. While this may not always be the case in actual scenarios, we will assume spiritual weapon will always be able to reach its targets to at least try to hit it. Like I said, best case scenario. Let's try to explain the formula in steps. Dividing enemy HP by the damage you do in a round gives you the amount of rounds it takes to kill the enemy. If we take the inverse, it gives us the amount of turns we deny the enemy in a certain round. Because we assume 4 turns in combat, killing the enemy in round 2 would remove turns 2, 3, and 4. In round 2, this would be turn 3 and 4, and finally, round 3, it would only remove turn 4. So the formula for the expected number of turns denied is this. By using this formula together with our allies' AC, the monster's chance to hit, and the average damage a monster does, we can calculate how much damage spiritual weapon prevents to our party. Now we're ready for the result, but before we do that, it's dice time! This video is sponsored by Only Crits, where they sell you shiny dice. You can use these dice to roll spiritual weapon, attack, and damage. Look at these pretty dice. They bring mirth and laughter. Perfect for your bard build. Not only can you use these dice for D&D 5th edition, but you can even use them in other systems like Pathfinder 2. Or even a better system than that, Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition.
Kobold, that's wow!
I know, Gator, these dice are stunning. When you buy a set of dice, you get a free adventure with it that can also be easily implemented into other systems as well.
But Kobold, I'm a player. DM is already providing me with an adventure.
Not to worry, Only Crit still has you covered. You could just pick up the player package instead. It's a supplement to help you inspire character creation. Check out onlycrits.com/packtactics. It's great, and if you like what you see, get some dice yourself. Use the coupon code PACKTACTICS for 12% discount. Back to the video. And this is the result. As you can see, this is not a lot of damage that is prevented by casting the spell. We could compare it to a healing spell pretty easily because damage prevented and healed can kind of cancel each other out if you think about it. This is Healing Word, also cast with a 2nd level spell by the same caster. Healing Word always comes up higher. The value of Healing Word on a conscious ally is abysmal. I talk about this in depth in my How to Heal video, so you guys should know this by now. In the situation where you cast Spiritual Weapon, it will just be outperformed by saving the slot and casting Healing Word in combat when you want to later on. That is not to say that you should though.
But Kobold, I can just cast a good spell like Spirit Guardians and Spiritual Weapon. You know the why not both meme? Spiritual Weapon isn't concentration.
Gator, you can't always just do everything. Your spell slots are limited. The spell is fine if throwing your spell slots into the void doesn't make a difference at your table. But that doesn't make the spell good. Additionally, look at any of its competitors. If you feel like the combat requires a commitment of a second level spell slot, look at something like Command. It will likely do a lot more than Healing Word, and by extension, Spiritual Weapon. And you cannot cast both on the same turn because of the bonus action casting rule. And the thing is, if you are better off casting Command now, you are probably better off casting it again later on if you feel like you need to spend another spell slot, especially compared to Spiritual Weapon, which will only do less damage the later you cast it. I made a video about Command like 2 years ago if you don't understand what I'm even talking about. Link in the description. Now, I've stated a couple of times that the math is quite favorable to Spiritual Weapon. It was the best case scenario. But to add one big flaw with it is its very restrictive ability to move. As a bonus action, you can move it up to 20 feet. That is so little. The math assumes you always get to the target, but in reality, good luck. Most monsters have at least 30-foot movement. And if they dash, well, your spell slot is basically wasted. Oh, the dragon flies up in the sky. Yeah, you're screwed. Additionally, in this video, I tried to compare casting the spell to not casting the spell. So literally just saving your spell slot. But what if I told you you could also do something way better with your bonus action? Look no further than telekinetic. Tabletop Builds made an article comparing that feat with Spiritual Weapon. It's pretty good. Though the feat is definitely not the reason why the spell is bad, which I've hopefully made clear. And finally, I want to say I don't believe the spell is literally never worth looking at.
Never say never.
Exactly. One situation where I would pick up this spell is when playing a Death Domain Cleric. That's not a very common subclass, but they can dish out some heavy damage with their Channel Divinity Touch of Death combined with the spell. While, to be fair, that is the only situation in which I would pick up the spell. But that is not to say that you shouldn't. The spell's flavor is super cool. I definitely understand the incentive to pick it up, and spell slots definitely aren't all that important in many games. So it's not a big issue to cast it in those games. If you have 2 encounter days, then it's fine. Have fun. Don't let me convince you to do otherwise. Just know that the spell isn't a must pick as many make it out to be, especially when effective resource management is incredibly important, like in a deep dungeon crawl. That's the end of the video. It's a new year, so of course I wish you all a fantastic year. This year will be wild for Dungeons & Dragons. I originally said good things about Dungeons & Dragons, but the leak happened yesterday and now I'm squirming. You should be for an open game license, a real open game license. Your hobby's in danger. You're gonna get worse products. Let's be honest, guys, the third-party guys make better content than Wizards of the Coast. I might make a full video out of this, but I don't know exactly what to say. This is not my field at all. Anyways, I want to remind you guys of something I said last year. People think I'm an extremist who tells other people that there's a right or wrong way to play the game. That is super duper wrong. I don't care what or how you play the game. I only care that you have fun with the system and fun watching my videos. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is for everyone. End of video. Anyways, I'm gonna play Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition now. I recommend you buy some cool dice from Only Crits, and I also hope to earn your subscription. Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.